Anyway, good afternoon, brothers and sisters, esteemed officers and delegates. Again, my name is Paul Talboo, Local G555, Cleveland, Ohio. It's an honor for me to introduce Joe Fern, Nick Passerelli from Local 18007, Craig Pinkham from Local 369. Before we get started, we'd really like to take a moment to thank some of the key people here who helped make this all possible. You know, none of the work that the Young Workers Initiative Committee have done, nothing that we've accomplished or hope to accomplish in the future would be possible without the continued support from our national president, Mike Langford, Executive Vice President Steve Van Sloten, Secretary Treasurer Mike Coleman, Vice President John Duffy, and the entire National Executive Board.
All right, I'll start over again. The Young Workers Initiative Committee has been developed on our Young Workers Program based upon three core principles. One, improved communication with and the education of all our members utilizing the member-to-member program. Two, improving the public view of unions through benevolent actions and building community partnerships. And three, fighting for social and economic justice through political actions.
It's a privilege to stand before all of you today to discuss political action. In our presentation, we'll lay out the political landscape as we move towards the 2016 elections and beyond, as well as discuss how we can utilize political action to fight for social and economic justice.
When we last stood before you at our regional victory conferences, we were discussing the importance of the upcoming 2014 midterm election, how turnout, especially among working class voters, would be essential. We discussed how we could not allow another massacre like we saw in 2010. Here's what we saw in a GOP-dominated election, winning important gubernatorial races and taking control of the Senate.
Exit polling indicates Democrats failed to connect with voters on their most important issue, the economy. And while Republicans consistently turn out to vote in the midterms, the Democratic base did not perform well. Overall voter turnout decreased to a low of 33%.
Looking forward, there are some signs of hope. Post-election polling data gathered by the AFL-CIO indicates that there's been an uptick in the Democratic share of vote, especially in organized labor in both governor race and Senate races. We'd all be lying to ourselves if we believed, based on these statistics, that we should expect a dramatic shift in the results of the upcoming 2016 elections. Nor should we be naive enough to believe that the corporate dollars played no role in the 2014 elections and won't in the 2016 elections and beyond. The Koch brothers alone pledged as much as $889 million to influence the outcome of the 2016 elections. It's no secret that the top candidates on their list to support for the GOP nominations are amongst the country's worst on organized labor and middle-class issues, such as right to work, collective bargaining rights, raising the minimum wage, and affordable health care, and the list goes on. 2016 should be the most important election in regards to organized labor in recent memory. Corporate-funded anti-worker conservatives already have the House and the Senate, and Republican president, especially one bought and paid for by the likes of the Koch brothers and Sheldon Adelson, could bring about an assault on unions, the likes of which the generation hasn't seen. So what do? Post-election data indicates some interesting correlations when it comes to voting on issues. Ballot initiatives, including issues of minimum wage, right to work, paid sick leave, and even legalizing marijuana, passed overwhelmingly, with some initiatives leading to increased voter turnout. The attached chart shows some of the better performing initiatives and the percentage those issues overperformed the top Democrat ticket on the ballots. Some areas where we may be able to gain some traction include minimum wage issues. A 2014 AFL-CIO study showed people overwhelmingly supported raising wages, including 62% in favor of raising the national minimum wage to $10 per hour. We discussed low turnout being a major factor in losing recent elections. But recent polls show, when directly asked about the issue of defeating candidates against raising minimum wage, what low turnout Dems are far more likely to get to the polls. Polling data also indicates that independent voters would be far more likely to vote for candidates in favor of raising the minimum wage.
Not to mention that in battleground states, in regards to their wages, more than half of the voters of their wages are not keeping up with the rise of cost of living, while another third believe that they're only keeping pace. These voters are primed to support candidates that make jobs and the economy their priority next November. Other areas polling suggests voters will support our own best interests. The population of this country supports spending tax dollars on infrastructure projects, including roads, bridges, and improving utilities. You can see that spending dollars on public works to create jobs is even outperforming our most conservative platform of cutting taxes, as well as overwhelming majority of people believing that this additional spending will actually help the current job situation. Again, when polled, key battleground states, voters were strongly on the side of issues of pro-labor candidates who supported, including increasing school funding, increasing taxes on corporations that profit overseas, increasing Social Security benefits, and requiring high-income workers to pay Social Security on all their wages, raising taxes on the wealthiest to pay for priorities, increasing the federal minimum wage, ending tax loopholes for corporations, and also immigration reform with a path to citizenship. Voters also strongly oppose the conservative issues that Congress may consider, including reducing regulations on banks, raising the Social Security retirement age, raising the age of seniors who are eligible for Medicare, and cutting Medicare costs.
Breaking news, it's still the economy, stupid. Now, whether pro-labor candidates connect on this issue is left to be seen, but there's no excuse if they don't know the playbook. AFL-CIO President Rich Trumka lays it out best for us.
And a comprehensive raising wages agenda. They must be committed to investing in a prosperous future for America. They must have an authentic voice and a commitment from the candidate down through his or her economic team to see this agenda through to completion. Workers don't want poll-driven messages. They want to be convinced that the candidate has an agenda for raising wages and will fight to make that agenda a reality.
I never like to make it a D versus R argument, because I know that I can immediately alienate as many as half of our members. We have to be honest. It's not hard to see where the conservatives stand. That's against us.
Marco Rubio, anti-union, anti-worker, anti-Medicaid. Ted Cruz, anti-union, anti-worker, anti-Medicaid, anti-immigration reform. Rand Paul, anti-union, anti-worker, anti-Medicaid, anti-immigration reform. Chris Christie, anti-union, anti-worker. Jeb Bush, anti-union, anti-Medicaid. Scott Walker, anti-union, anti-worker, anti-Medicaid.
Maybe the Dems won't keep their promises. But you're never going to see these words come out of the conservatives' mouths. Or these words.
What the campaign is about is a very radical idea. We're going to tell the truth. And the truth is that for 40 years, the middle class of this country has been disappearing. And there has been a huge transfer of trillions of dollars in wealth from working families to the top 1/10 of 1%. And what the people of this country are saying, enough is enough. Our government, our country belong to all of us and not just a few billionaires.
Guys, this isn't an endorsement, but if nothing else, I'm excited to see that this might actually change the conversation. Now, hopefully this forces the Democratic candidates to take an actual position when it comes to labor, wealth inequality, and the erosion of the middle class. And hopefully it'll allow us to be a little bit more informed come the primaries. Now, brothers and sisters, we are simply running out of time. Union density is in decline. The middle class is being whittled away. Now we must, for self-preservation alone, do everything we can to ensure that pro-labor, pro-worker, pro-middle class candidates are elected nationwide. We must win back the presidency. We must strive to take back the House and the Senate. We must work to elect pro-labor governors in our states. We must promote and support labor candidates that run for office in all levels of government. And in some cases, we should look to become those candidates ourselves. We must door knock. We must phone bank. We must talk to our friends, families, and neighbors. And we must make 2016 a priority, even if we feel that the deck may be stacked against us. I'm not usually one for melodrama, but how many more of these conventions can we honestly expect to have if we are not willing to stand up against those who would see us destroyed? Now, the YWIC is committed to political action. It's one of our core principles. And we hope to be on the forefront as young workers of all the things we just spoke about. But political action must be about more than just winning elections. It is our duty to bring light to oppression against those who cannot or will not be heard. Now, you're going to hear more from my colleagues over the rest of this week about how we've worked to educate and communicate better with all of our members, as well as mentor and empower new and young members, of how we've worked to create community partnerships and improve the perceptions of unions through benevolent acts. But we must then take these educated, motivated union members who've donated time and donated money to these causes to mobilize for justice. I came upon a fantastic article in the Huffington Post recently. It was written by the president of the Children's Defense Fund, Ms. Marian Wright Edelman. She made a contention in this article that really resonated with me as I began working on this presentation. And her contention was that charity does not equal justice. Ms. Edelman quoted Dr. Martin Luther King in a speech that he gave in New York City on April 4th, 1967. He said, "A true revolution of values will soon cause us to question the fairness and the justice of many of our past and present policies. On the one hand, we are called to play the Good Samaritan on life's roadside. But that will only be an initial act. One day we must come to see that the whole Jericho Road must be transformed so that men and women will not be constantly beaten and robbed as they make their journey on life's highway. True compassion is more than flinging a coin to a beggar. It comes to see that an edifice which produces beggars needs restructuring." Now, 1 year later, on the night before his assassination, Dr. King recounted that biblical parable of the Good Samaritan who helped a traveler in need who had been beaten, robbed, and left nearly for dead as he traveled along from the road to Jerusalem to Jericho. Now, Dr. King believed that we are all called to follow the example of the Good Samaritan, to treat a stranger as a neighbor, to help those in need. But he also believed that true justice requires us to attack the forces that leave others in need in the first place. Tending to the traveler's wounds is treating the system, but unless we make the road to Jericho safe to commute, you are ignoring the root cause of the problem. Yes, we should donate food to area food pantries, but we are also charged to fight against a system that leaves Americans jobless and homeless, an educational system that leaves our children ill-prepared for careers that would provide for themselves or their families, a minimum wage that no longer provides enough to purchase basic essentials. Yes, we should care for those who are sick and feeble. We are also charged to fight against a system that leaves too many Americans without adequate access to affordable health care. A system that sees our soldiers come home from war without access to quality mental health care. Yes, we should financially support our brothers and our sisters in need, but we are charged to fight against those who continue to attack their collective bargaining rights. Rights to fight for a living wage, affordable health care, paid vacations, and sick leave. And the young workers are set to lead this charge.
Black Friday 2014, the largest shopping day of the year, as part of a coordinated nationwide action, young workers, including members of the G-555 Young Workers Group in Northeast Ohio, stood in protest against Walmart, bringing light to the fact that members of a multi-billion-dollar corporation are paid poverty wages, receive no benefits, and are forced to seek public assistance to feed their families. In the following weeks, Walmart announced plans to raise the minimum wage the company pays its employees. While the protesters cannot take full credit, we are proud to be part of the negative publicity and political pressure that led to the CEO of Walmart to take a small step in the right direction.
In Chicago this March, during the AFL-CIO Next Up Summit, UWUA young workers joined over 600 other members and community partners in various protests, including one at Guitar Center, who were in contract talks and facing constant discrimination against and targeting employees known to be pro-union. Others protested at Chicago area Nissan dealership in solidarity with the Mississippi Nissan workers, who are trying to organize but face increasing intimidation from the corporation. Nissan is notorious for hiring long-term temporary employees who enjoy neither pay nor the benefits of regular Nissan employees.
Concurrently, over 400 union activists converged upon a local McDonald's and then marched to a Food for Less fight to raise the minimum wage to $15 per hour.
Show them that there's power in numbers. What do we want? 15. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? 15. When do we want it?
How's it going, everybody? My name is Marcos Velez. I'm here from Houston, Texas. And the reason that I'm here today is because this is not a fight that only affects fast food workers. This is not a fight that only affects people that work in the service industry. This is a fight for all Americans. This is a fight for all of us. The people that serve our children food at these restaurants should not have a problem buying food to feed their children. It's not a shame, it's a sin. It should be a crime for the people that serve us in the service industry to not be able to make a living wage.
Ladies and gentlemen, every major change in this country began as a movement. And every movement has been led by those who believed in their cause enough to risk everything to fight for it. This is our movement. And I ask you, brothers and sisters, who better to lead this fight? Who better than us? Thank you.